Hello, I'm Mixed Up Michele, and this is episode number 6, Not Good Enough. And just as a little heads up, this episode is coming a little out of order as far as time goes, but I thought it was the best order for getting the concepts that you need. So just a heads up there. Enjoy. Welcome to the I Cut the Mustard show, where a plant-based diet and small, simple moves make healthy change happen. And where we believe that you already have what it takes to slice through any barrier that stands in your way. Shing! You're sharp enough. You cut the mustard. So I am here in Nashville and I'm at a business conference and because I'm trying to grow my business, and I've obviously been thinking a lot about that the last couple of days. And I think growing a business is like a lot of things in life. One moment you feel amazing and confident. Oh yeah, I've got this. And the next hour you're sobbing in the bathroom, on the bathroom floor. This happened to me on day one. I was feeling so great. Oh yeah, I've got this vision. I've got this framework for how I'm going to do this thing. I have got this. And then on day two, I come back and then get into the nitty gritty about just different approaches that we can take, different tactics and strategies. And I found myself back in that bathroom, figuratively, because I don't want to be on a random bathroom floor. But I was really feeling discouraged, like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this thing. How am I going to do all these 10 million tasks that I want to do and show up and be successful with my business? So I think this is true for anything worth doing in life, like relationships, parenting, weight loss, and just becoming the best version of yourself. Any goal that we make has these ups and downs. And one struggle that so many of us struggle with is feeling like that we're not enough, right? There's this theory about the brain, that there's a primitive part of the brain down on the bottom. It's our brainstem. And then there's an intellectual part of our brain up here, the big part. And sometimes these two brains are in conflict with each other. The intellectual brain wants to think one thing, and the primitive brain is just there trying to take care of us. So this happens whenever we make a new goal or we set certain expectations for ourselves. If it's a little bit different than what we've been doing, the habits that we've been doing in the past, it's uncomfortable. The primitive brain sees that it's uncomfortable and is trying to save us from that. So it starts trying to protect us in various ways. And I really feel like this is one way that it tries to protect us, to tell us, hey, you're not good enough. Don't worry about that. Let's come back to the cave. So whenever we feel like, I'm not good enough, then you stop trying to take action. You start pitying yourself and you run away, or you start blaming others. So it's a great way for your brain to just say, get back in that cave. But obviously, we don't want to feel like we're not good enough, right? And we want to achieve those goals that we have. We want to be better parents. I want to have a business, right? We want to lose weight. Whatever it is that you're doing, those goals are worth it. So let's tackle this thing. What does it mean to be not good enough? I've thought about this a lot because this is one of the big barriers that I have. And I know you can relate, but one day I was feeling not good enough, and I asked myself, I was trying to journal it out, and I asked myself, good enough for what? And I think that good enoughs fall into 3 categories. Number 1, you're not good enough in general. Like, I'm a terrible mom. I'm a terrible person. I'm a loser, right? So number 1, you may not be good enough in general. I feel like you're not good enough in general. Number 2, you're not good enough for someone else. I guess the classic example is if your husband or wife leave you, then you're not good enough for him or her. A lot of us can't relate to that. So maybe you're just feeling like you failed someone. You failed to meet their expectations. You were supposed to show up at a certain time and you were late, or you're supposed to bring something to a party and you didn't. So you're just not good enough for someone else. And then I think the third thing is just being not good enough to achieve something, like not good enough to create that business, not good enough to get that job that you wanted. Maybe you're a runner, not good enough to run that far, right? So I want to run through some ways of thinking about these things so that next time this ugly little thought critter creeps into your brain, you can have some ammunition and think about just some different ways to think about this thing so that you can get yourself out of that and start moving forward. So let's talk about number one. You're not good enough in general. Maybe you're feeling like a terrible mom, a terrible friend, or you're just a worthless human in general. When I've wrestled with this in the past, some of my favorite mentors have suggested the solution. They say, of course you're good enough or you wouldn't be here, which was a little confusing to me at first, but you're a good enough mom because you are one. If you weren't a good enough mom, then you wouldn't be one. It's as simple as that. Like, you're a good enough human because you're here standing on the earth. And if you're not good enough, you wouldn't be here. Somehow you met the qualifications, whatever they are, for being a human. You passed the test to come to earth, and you haven't died yet. So you must be good enough to be here. Same for being a mom. For whatever reason, I mean, we're not all moms or dads. Some of us can't have children, but for whatever reason, if you're a mom, then you're good enough to be a mom. The universe has decided. And we'll go into later, you know, if you're not a mom and you're feeling like you're not good enough to be a mom, that's a different story. But when we think that we're not good enough as a friend or a mom or as a person, it's just a thought. It's not real. There's no measuring stick. There's not someone who has the official book and the official qualifications written down somewhere who's coming around with their stick and trying to see if we measure up or not, right? So the only reason that you're not enough is because you think you're not enough. If you have a friend, you feel like you're not a good enough friend, but you still have that friend, you must be good enough for that friend, right? And when we think the thought, hey, I'm not good enough, it just makes things worse. So for example, and I wrestle a lot with feeling like I'm not a good mom. A lot of us do, right? So I don't spend enough time with them. I don't give them enough love, or I shouldn't have yelled. I shouldn't have done that thing, or I should show up more to their school, or whatever it is. You've just got these expectations in your head and you're just not good enough. So what happens whenever you're thinking those thoughts? You know, you feel ashamed, you feel worthless. As a mom who feels worthless, I get angry more easily. I yell at my kids more often, and I become that terrible mom that I think I am. So I just created whatever I was thinking. I give them less love because I'm ashamed and I run away and I want to just hang out in another room. Oh, I've got so much to do. I'm so busy somehow. And I'm avoiding that situation. And I spend less time with them, right? Which was one of my thoughts. Oh, I don't spend enough time with them, right? This is true in any relationship. If you think that way, you'll act that way and you'll sort of become that thing. So whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. Whenever you think that thought, you become that type of person. And maybe your brain's trying to protect you, but you can be onto yourself. You can say, hey, thanks, brain, but no thanks. I'm good enough because I'm here. I'm good enough because I have friends, because I am a mom. Maybe that's the whole point. Maybe I'm supposed to make mistakes, right? Maybe I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be, right? Maybe I'm exactly the mom I'm supposed to be, because if I was a robot and I did everything absolutely right, it's not authentic. We don't relate to those people, right? Whenever we get into a fight with our friends or our spouse or whatever it is, and you make it through that, that's when your relationship becomes stronger, right? So maybe being not good enough is the point, and it's part of being a good friend or a good spouse or a good mom, whatever it is. So let's move on to number 2. Maybe you're not good enough for someone else. Maybe you failed them, maybe you let them down, maybe they even tell you that you're not good enough or you disappointed them, right? And as I go through these, I'm trying to separate these into categories, but they usually all come all at once, right? Back to the last example. Like, I feel like if you feel like you're not good enough in general, like I'm not a good enough mom, then you can start to think about how you let somebody else down. I'm not good enough for them. I'm not good enough for my kids or my spouse, whatever. And you're probably feeling this way because of number 3, because you failed at some task or goal or whatever it is that you have. So now you're feeling terrible because you failed at that thing. They all come at the same time generally, and I'm just breaking it apart to give you a few ways of thinking about it so that you can find the way that resonates with you the best. So let's go back to number 2. Maybe you're feeling like you're not good enough for someone else. You've disappointed them. You've let them down in some way. And this one actually is not your fault and none of your business. So let me give you an example. So let's say I was supposed to bring some food to this party, and not just any food, not just like a snack or a side. It's not a potluck. I'm supposed to bring the main dish, the main part of the meal. But instead of going to the party, I totally spaced it. I forgot all about the party. I didn't even show up for that party. Okay. Most of us would look at that and say that you let them down. And maybe even that you're not a good enough friend, right? You're not good enough for them. But is that true? Can you really let someone else down? I think we've all got these friends and family where the extremes. Have you ever met this kind of person before where it doesn't matter what you do? They are always sort of grumpy or disappointed. They're always complaining in some way. Like, you think you take all this time to prepare this thing for them that you think they're going to love, and they just hate it, or they told you they want you to do this thing in one way, so you do your really, really best, and you bring it, and they still think it's not good enough, right? So we've all met those kind of people. And on the flip side, you meet other people who are just the sweetest, kindest, most loving people that are truly laid back, and they completely understand. It really isn't a big deal. No problem. We fixed it. We understand. You know, people get busy sometimes. We forget. We just ordered pizza. You know, really, truly, they don't care. Okay, so you can't disappoint those kind of people. It's kind of like the youngest child syndrome, right? That there's no wrong. You can do no wrong, right? So honestly, we all flop in between these two different types of people. I feel like sometimes we're the first person and sometimes we act like that second person for other people, right? But the point is that it doesn't matter what you do. For person number 1, it doesn't matter how well you perform. They're always going to be disappointed. They'll always have something to say about it. And on the other side, you can never disappoint person number 2, because they're just totally wonderful and loving and understanding. So you see how it has nothing to do with you, right? So it's all about them. It's all about how they're thinking about the situation, how they see the situation. It has everything to do with them, and it's their business, not yours. Well, the facts are that you didn't bring dinner when you said you would. That's it. You just didn't bring dinner when you said you would. It's not inherently a bad thing. It's not evil. It's not good. It's just whatever that person is thinking about what you did. Because of this, because it's what the other person is thinking, you can't disappoint them, no matter how hard you tried. Even if you do something really big and terrible that everyone maybe would agree that you disappointed them, the truth is that it's their choice to be disappointed because it's their thoughts about whether or not you're good enough. So it's all about them. It's not about you. Which leads us to part number 3. Maybe you can separate yourself from them and what they're thinking, and it's their deal, it's their business, so you forget worrying about them, let's pretend. But we still have to worry about us. What if you disappoint yourself? What if you aren't good enough for you? You feel terrible because you know you could have brought food to that. And why didn't you write it down and put it on your phone? Like, what were you thinking? So you're not good enough for some sort of task. Maybe you set a goal and you failed, or you tried to be on time, like in this instance, and you weren't. Or maybe you tried to make some beautiful cookies for somebody's birthday party and you failed. And this is the part that I've really struggled with so much in the past, because that first solution that I mentioned, that you're good enough because you're here, like that one just never really resonated with me. It's hard for me to be like, yeah, I'm here. It just takes a lot more effort. So I try to tell myself that I'm good enough because I'm here. But, and that maybe it's supposed to happen that way, like we talked about earlier. And I've argued with myself about it so much. Like, of course I'm good enough. And if that doesn't work, sometimes it turns into blame. Like, oh, if I'm good enough, but it still went wrong, then it must be someone else's fault. That oven that I put the cookies in was broken. That's why they burned, right? So, for example, your mind just hates to be wrong, right? It's trying to prove itself right. It's trying to figure things out and just like kind of categorize them and put them in the brain in some ways so that you feel some peace, right? So, have you ever gotten some new information that just doesn't fit into what you already believe, but you can see that it's kind of true? So your brain's just doing this thing where it's like, well, where does it fit among all the other things that I believe? And it kind of takes it a minute, and then it either justifies it by blaming others or just puts it in your brain somehow, right? So you just feel uncomfortable until you can kind of figure out where it fits in the slot or make sense of it somehow. So the brain wants to be right. And here's the thing. Whenever you're fighting about your brain about how you're not good enough, it feels like you're always losing because you can find evidence for how you're not good enough, right? I burnt those cookies in the oven, so I'm not, like, that wasn't good enough. I didn't make beautiful cookies, and that was my goal. So that's totally true. You're not good enough, right? You didn't get the job. You burnt those cookies. You weren't on time. You failed. And you can keep arguing with your brain about it, but the fact is it's true. You're not good enough, or you would have won. You would have accomplished that thing. So how do we wrestle with that? If it's true, how do we keep from feeling like a loser all the time and hiding in our closet and not moving forward with our life whenever we have goals and things that we want to do? Well, you can embrace it. You can feel it. You can go to that meditation place where you just accept it as part of your life and love that part of you, which I suggest, which I think is really great. But I really loved how Tom Bilyeu put it in our conference yesterday. He totally blew my mind. And this is a man who was like one of the biggest losers. He said it himself. Whenever he graduated from college, he totally failed his senior thesis. He didn't have a job. He just had anxiety. He was sleeping half of the day. He barely got up to make his wife her lunch, And even in high school, he was a total slacker. He just barely got by. He was kind of the troublemaker. Like, there was no signs. He was lazy. There was no signs that he was ever going to beat anyone in life. And you can see how other people would think he's not good enough. You can see how he would feel that he's not good enough. His father-in-law rejected him and said, "Don't marry my daughter." Later, 25 years later, after this experience with his father-in-law, he sold a health company for $1 billion. So he created his own company and sold it for $1 billion. And that took him 25 years. But just think about going from being a total loser to 25 years later selling your company for $1 billion. That's a huge shift that I think no one in his family at the time would have predicted for him. So during the conference, he told us very plainly that you're not good enough. Those are the facts. But you're not good enough yet. And I really, really love this concept and the freedom that it gives me to admit that I'm not good enough yet. So you aren't good enough at making cookies yet. You're not good enough. You aren't good enough to not yell at your kids yet. And you're not good enough to get that job yet, or to make that business yet, or to find that perfect person to marry yet, or to lose that weight, right? Oh, that's a big one where we just feel like we're not good enough. There's something flawed. There's something wrong with us, right? It doesn't mean that you can't be good enough one day, So next time you feel like you're not good enough, remember that we humans adapt. It's the coolest thing that we do. We heal, our bodies heal right before our eyes. We change, we learn from every failure, and we grow. And our bodies are designed to do this. Whenever we go to the gym and we work out and it totally stinks, then our bodies grow, and the next time we're stronger. And the more that we put ourselves into those situations where we fail and where we try and fail, then the more we grow, right? So remember, you're not good enough yet. Cool. You've got this. I'll see you next time. Have a fabulous day. If you want to make some real change happen, sign up for a free 15-minute Make Your Move call today. It's a one-on-one sales-free call with me where we look at your goals and find which small move will make it happen for you. Go to icutthemustard.com/makeyourmove to sign up for the call today.